I've invented a new balloon. A glove.
Put your gloves on, Oscar.
Yeah.
Hi everyone and welcome back to Waterhouse Forde. This is a quick follow-up video on the top cover. As you can see today we've got it back in the press and we're going to try to push out that second bush. As you may recall from the previous video, one of the bushes came out with the shaft and obviously the other one stayed behind. And what we want to do today is to try and push it through. First of all, we've got an old bearing race in there which is big enough to push on the bush but small enough to go through the hole in this casing. But as you can see, it doesn't have much depth. So we're only going to be able to push this down to that depth, and then we're going to have to find another one of these to put on top and basically continue. So it's going to be a bit of a progressive project, but I'm hoping that it will get to a stage where the bush will actually push through relatively easily. Okay, so let's get started.
Now to start the press.
Okay, so we're going to give it a go, see if it'll come out cold. Seems to be moving, okay. And that might just be it going back into its place. But let's see how we go.
Oh, it is moving, see?
Okay. Keep going. Okay. Definitely going. Good.
I don't think we're going to have to put 20 tons of pressure on.
No, thank goodness.
Yeah. Making quite a cool noise, like it's the start of a spooky song. Do like a half.
Right, stop there. Okay, now we release it. Right, now we need to find something else to go in there.
Like another washer.
Okay, another bearing race. I'm sure we've got one somewhere, but let's have a look.
Or we could take apart another bearing.
We've got a socket that just sits on the bearing race. We've got a nut in there and then we're going in there. So let's see how we go. Hopefully that will... Okay. Now, of course, the other thing is, as soon as this comes out, this main assembly is going to become loose, which is why I'm needing to hold it as well. It's definitely not a one-man job.
It's getting a lot easier.
Sadly, the camera stopped at the crucial moment as the bush was coming out. But as you can see, we've got that out. You can see the muck in there, and that's after a good or a reasonable clean. There's still a lot in there. Anyway, that one's out. Look, this one looks okay compared to the other one, which, as you saw in the previous video, was quite severely deformed. This one actually looks okay. And just to show you the casing, that's down here. And as you can see, that now needs a good clean, but otherwise it's well, it is now ready for cleaning. Right, now this next job is to remove these bolts. So you may recall from the previous video, I had put these bolts in order to protect the end of the shaft here when I was pounding on it with the hammer. Now, obviously, they've become mushroomed, as you can see, which is fine. So effectively, they've done their job. Now, I'm going to struggle to get these out. It's definitely going to be tough. They were tough enough getting in. So I'm going to try a few different options. The final option I think will be basically to grind these heads off, and you'll then be able to see the actual bolt in the hole. I'll then need to try and drill down the center of that hole and use a screw extractor to remove them. But I'm hoping, perhaps beyond reasonableness, that I can actually grind some flat faces on here, enough to allow me to actually grip them with probably a shifting spanner and see if I can get them out. But yeah, we'll just have to see. Now the other thing you'll notice is that I've gripped this in the vase using, essentially gripping on this old bush. Now that still needs to be taken off, obviously, but before I do that I thought that's actually a great way to hold this shaft in the vase whilst we try and remove these. Because of course that bush is finished anyway. It needs to be thrown away, cut off and thrown away anyway. So rather damage that in the vase than damage the shaft anymore. Now, I've not used one of these before. I don't know if anybody else has. It's basically got this tiny little cutting disc. I'm hoping it's going to be up to the job. Essentially, I want to cut a flat face there, flat face here, and here, and here. And hopefully that'll be enough to allow me to begin turning these off. Let's see. Now, of course, before we go any further, let's make sure we've got proper eye protection. It's working, but as you can see, it's consumed the disc almost entirely, and I don't think I can get much more out of that one, so we'll change that and have another go. Okay, now the interesting thing is that went through quite a lot of these little discs, but you can see there I've now got two very nice flat faces. Let me just count. I think I went through that, so that took 5 discs to get both of those sides off. One of those discs actually just shattered not long after starting, if you see what I mean. So it didn't get the full benefit of that disc. But it's also obviously worth noting that those things do shatter, so do wear eye protection and be careful. But yeah, so now we're going to put a shifting spanner on there and see if we can actually get that to turn. One of the challenges, of course, will be I might be able to turn it far enough, but then this one might get in the way. We'll just have to see whether we can work around that. Otherwise, I may have to think of a different plan. Okay, that is pretty tight in there, but I think we'll get it. Let's just get a bit more leverage on this thing. Okay, interesting. So that's actually, the shaft is turning in the bush now, which is not really what we wanted. So let's see if we tighten the vise a little bit more. Get a little bit more leverage on this spanner. Go. Shaft's turning again. Right, so I'm going to have to think of a different plan to hold the shaft. So probably some soft wood in the jaws and clamping in on these splines, and that should hold it pretty fast. But the good news is that that bush is actually loosening on the shaft there now, so it's not a bad thing. Well, there you go. Just loosened the vase, and the shaft basically dropped through the bush. I was worried about how we're going to get this bush off, but it looks like it wants to come off anyway, so again, it's not a bad thing. What I am going to do though is leave it there for now. And just get this clamped in the vase, and I'll come back. Okay, so you can see now I've got 2 pieces of wood in there gripping on the splines. That wood has been pretty well compressed, so I'm hoping that's enough. And we'll get this, see if we can get this loose now. There we go. So that's now coming. Let's see if we can get this past this nut. This is always going to be the challenge. Just getting it past there. Now what I might do is now cut a flat on here, which will give me a bit more clearance. Okay, so we now have flats cut on this one as well. Let's continue with this one just to get this out first. There we go. Right, now we're going to get this one out. We do have a bit of a burr here, so I'm going to just knock that off quickly with a file. So don't want any done. Well, I have to say, I'm pleased that that worked in the end. I was a bit concerned that it might be tougher than that. I mean, that was bad enough, but I was afraid it might be tougher. But anyway, we've managed to do it, which is good. And this face is, I mean, it's got a couple of scars on it, but that'll buff up nicely. We'll get maybe just flatten that, just polish that essentially. Once it's all cleaned up. Right, now the only thing left then is this bush. So we'll see if we can get that out. So maybe just rest this bush on top of the vase, but so that the shaft is loose. Just like that. Maybe a little bit more, just like that. See if I can gently tap this out. Without it damaging the splines, which at the moment looks like it's okay. Soft drift. There we go. Now I don't want this falling on the concrete, so there we go. Done. And no obvious damage to the splines. Great. So that shaft is now ready for cleaning, and we've given it a clean, obviously, to get most of the oil and dirt off. But I'm going to try sandblasting this. Now, one thing that's concerning me is all this pitting. I think you can see it here. Let me get this back into the camera. Yeah, here. So there's quite serious pitting here. Now obviously this is where the bush rides. So actually I'm wondering maybe the shaft needs to be replaced. Because if you think about it, that's essentially running inside your bush. And no matter what you do, that's going to bind after a year or two, essentially. Right, so I need to research whether we can get this shaft replaced. If we can't, what I will have to do is polish this up as best I can and get it as smooth as I can, and see where we go from there. Unfortunately, we can't skim it because the bushes have to be able to come over the spline, and obviously we can't make the spline any smaller. In an ideal world, you'd be able to skim this and put a slightly oversized bush in, but that's not going to be an option in this case. Now, interesting, you see here, it's okay on this part of it, but then all of that is, and you can see, I think you can see, yeah. So that's probably only about a third of the bush. So 2/3 of it, and it depends exactly where this rides, but yeah, you get the idea. The majority of that bush is going to be running on this pitted area, which is no good. Right, so we'll need to see. Hopefully we can get a replacement shaft. I think that'll be my preference. If not, then we'll have to clean this one up as best we can. I suppose one other option would be you could probably send it to some sort of specialist. I'm sure they could build this up and then remachine it back to size. Sounds very expensive to me, but we'll see. Right, well listen, that's it for today. It was just, as I said, just a quick catch-up video, just basically just to bring you back up to speed. There's a lot of cleaning work going on at the moment, trying to get everything nice and nicely cleaned up. Once it's and also ordering parts, so we need to order the rebuild kit for the hydraulic pump. We're going to probably replace the cylinder and the piston, and I think on that we're probably going to use the piston with the O-ring instead of the rings, the cast iron rings. So we'll use the O-ring with I think it's got like a washer backup. And a new cylinder, and then looks like we're going to end up needing a new shaft and obviously the replacement bushes for that. So pretty much everything that can be replaced will be replaced on this one, which is a bit of a shame, but yeah, that's just the state it's in, and we need, we want this to be done properly, so we're going to do it properly. Alright, well thanks for watching everybody. Hope to see you on the next one. In the meantime, have fun.